Well, it took 5 months, but Jabari Smith seems to have truly figured it out. But I do, this is those moments again where I feel like I need to do the, let me talk to you for a minute about whatever. And it's not necessarily that I need to talk to you for a minute about Jabari Smith Jr. because he's just one example in a long line of examples of this same thing happening every single year. And so I did say during my, if this is the second season or more that you've been listening to Fantasy NBA today, you remember that during my kind of the post-mortem, season ended, season died, and we went back and we looked at our lessons learned. And one of the lessons that I learned from last year was I felt I needed to be a little bit less intensely harsh on rookie big men if their percentages were not that terrible. Now, the interesting thing about this particular rookie crop is that there weren't really any rookie big men that were expected to play a bunch right out of the chute. We ended up getting some Mark Williams here late in the season before this hand injury. We ended up getting Jalen Duren by, I think that was December. He started to move into a little bit more of a prominent role. But if you look back at your fantasy draft, there wasn't really a rookie big getting drafted because Chet Holmgren was going to be that guy. It was going to be Chet. He got hurt. And so then it was mostly rookie wings, ball dominant ones, less ball dominant ones, but effectively Paolo was getting drafted at a somewhat early clip. Keegan Murray was getting drafted seemingly too early. Jabari Smith Jr. was another one, and those were probably the biggest three of the rookie names coming off the board on draft day. And they all profiled, and if you wanted to go to some of the smaller dudes like a Jaden Ivey, although he wasn't really getting drafted because Cade was expected to play for at least some of this year, these wings going into the season, I think the thought was, well, Keegan Murray at least doesn't have to be a focal point. He was never going to get shoehorned into a crap ton of usage to start the year in the way that Paolo, we knew he was going to get all kinds of usage. And Jabari Smith Jr. was likely to get a pretty good chunk of usage. These guys are, top 3 picks. So their team was going to do stuff with them. And they were on teams that were rebuilding. So they fell right into that very repeatable zone of rookies that were expected to do a bunch of stuff that had no idea how to handle the NBA. The worst case scenario for this is a rookie guard, a rookie ball dominant guard, because then you get all the trappings of rookiedom and turnovers on top of it. And that's kind of what you had a little bit with Paolo. But for him, more of it was the percentages. That's rookie stuff right there. Those things do tend to come around. He's at least a bigger body, so the season didn't crush him the way it does some others. But like Jabari Smith Jr. is a perfect example of a dude who has a rookie NBA body, was trying to figure out how to have decent efficiency on a team that didn't really know how to play with one another. And the only saving grace was that he wasn't an initiator on that Rockets team, so at least the turnovers weren't all that high. But it's the same story on repeat every single year. Other than rookie big men who have okay percentages, you get these guys who have terrible efficiency. It happens every year. And the best rookie is usually one that kind of comes out of nowhere. This year it was Jalen Williams. He wasn't drafted in a single one of my leagues. And they're relatively competitive, and now he's inside the top 80, and he's been much better than that over the last 2.5, 3 months after a slow start to the year. That wasn't the guy that everybody was taking in the 7th, 8th round. It was Paolo. It was Jabari Smith Jr. It was Keegan. And these guys, Keegan Murray at least got up to 114 on the year. I mean, that's like, at least that's serviceable. The rest of these guys aren't even really close. But Jabari Smith Jr. is figuring it out now. And that's the other half of this rookie equation, is that there is usually a point somewhere along the way, mid-season, whatever, that rookies begin to figure out how to be a little bit more efficient. It's not so much that it's just like, oh, well, this is how I do it. They just get comfortable. The game slows down a little bit for them. I feel like Trae Young, going back, is one of the clearest examples we've had of that. And honest to goodness, I couldn't tell you guys how long Trae's been in the NBA anymore. I feel like it's, 4 or 5 seasons now? How long's Trae been around? Sorry, Yahoo doesn't show the career numbers anymore for some reason on their player pages. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. What are you doing, Yahoo? Why did you take the career numbers off of the player page and it goes only to game log? Fix yourself, you idiots. I got to go to a different page? They're going to lose a lot of traffic that way. Anyway, Trae came into the league in 2018. He's part of the 2018 draft class, so this is his 5th season overall. That first year, he shot 41.8% from the field. But it was more than that. And, we can, I can't share the screen to my delightful YouTube viewers, not fast enough at least. But if you go back to the 2018-2019 season and you just sort of like play along with us on this game and split it into the pre and post All-Star stretches. So, go from October to whatever it is. I don't know when the exact All-Star game was, but if you go October to February and you pull up Trae Young's numbers, he was shooting 41%. That was first 50 games of the year or something like that. So, most of the season. And then if you go from, mid-February, whatever it is, let's say like February 10th to when did the season end? Mid-April. I have no idea the exact dates. And frankly, it's too slow to do on a podcast. He shot 43%. And his free throw went up from 81 to 87. And it's weird how these things kind of work in conjunction, where when a game slows down and a player just gets a little bit more comfortable, Trae Young went from being outside the top 100 to being a top 40 play the second half of his rookie season. And it was just those little tweaks, which is why, and there are ways to pull this off that are not all that insane. If you draft a rookie, you're going to be squatting on it for a long time. You just pray that the rookie's figuring things out by January, because usually it doesn't happen earlier than that. Optimally, though, eventually people are going to get annoyed with their rookies. People are annoyed with Paolo now because he still hasn't really gotten the efficiency stuff sorted out this year. He's shooting 42% from the field, 75% at the free throw line on high volume. Paolo Banchero is near departing the top 200 in fantasy. He got off to a quick start, too. Jabari Smith Jr. is just inside the top 150 while shooting 40% from the field and 79 at the free throw line, although his turnovers, again, are much more respectable. But this is what you're dealing with. Everybody, myself included, I would have run out of patience for Jabari Smith Jr. a long time ago. Took the dude 60 games for the game to slow down a little bit for him, but it's happening now. And I want us to remember this moment, and we're going to talk about this during our lessons learned after the season ends as well. When do you go out and try to get a rookie? Because it ain't on draft day. But if you can pull off a mid-season swipe for something like this, and if you're in the playoffs right now and Jabari just kicked it into high gear, holy crap. I don't think he got dropped in many spots because people spent a decent draft pick on him and they had these high hopes, but he very much could have been acquired for a kind of quiet later producer for a while there. Welcome to Fantasy NBA Today. I needed to do a Let Me Talk to You About segment at the beginning of the show. I am Dan Besbris at Dan Besbris on Twitter, DanBesbris. Playoff fantasy basketball rumbles on. Hope you guys are hanging in there. I lost one team. I thought I lost my 30-deep team, but I actually won by precisely 2 points. Because Dario Saric somehow outscored Jeremy Grant. That's a team that's missing Kevin Durant. There's no hope that it's going to advance any farther, but it's funny that I was able to squeeze past one. And right now, if your team is staying healthy, you're probably hanging in there in your fantasy playoffs. Otherwise, probably not. Anyway, let's recap a kind of short Monday by all accounts. 7-gamer yesterday. Detroit swamped Indiana, but the Pacers were without Everybody. No Tyrese Halliburton, no TJ McConnell, no Miles Turner, no Benedict Mathurin. And Chris Duarte left this game partway through with some ankle soreness. Got a hurt ankle. The good news is when all of those guys are out, Andrew Nembhard is streamable, although the Pacers don't have a great schedule this week. So, these streams for Indy make more sense in a roto format because we don't know if anybody's going to be back by their next game on Thursday. Isaiah Jackson, obviously a terrific one-night stream. You kind of have to just play this Indy stuff on a day-to-day basis. I wouldn't add any of these guys in head-to-head. I will definitely add Isaiah Jackson in roto and hope that we can squeeze another game out of him, but that's probably as far as I go on the Indiana side. As far as Detroit is concerned, Jalen Duren and James Wiseman splitting the center minutes right down the pipe, and they each actually had pretty good ball games. Duren, they each double-doubled. They combined for a steal and 5 blocks, almost splitting those down the middle as well. Combined for 25 rebounds. I don't know who the hell is going to start their next ball game because it's tonight, and there's, I think, a reasonable chance that at least one, maybe both of those guys sits out the back-to-back. I still think that Duren is your guy longer term. Certainly in Dynasty or Keeper formats, he's your guy longer term. But Detroit's going to give Wiseman an opportunity here. I will point out that Wiseman was a -1 in a game his team won by 20. And Duren was a +21. Some of that was picking on the bench of a team that had to start their bench because there were so many guys out. But Detroit's kind of in that same monster. Detroit is all about head-to-head streams right now because you can't really trust Duren in 23 minutes. You can't really trust Wiseman in 24 minutes. You can't really trust Isaiah Livers because his fantasy game isn't very good. And he hurt his hip in yesterday's ball game. Killian Hayes is tough to trust because at some point Jaden Ivey is going to show back up, although you could roll with Killian super short-term in roto because he probably will play tonight. Corey Joseph has actually been rolling. He might be playable tonight. Eugene Omoruyi had a really nice ball game, but it's worth keeping an eye on. I don't want to just write it off completely because Marvin Bagley's out for a few days. And Isaiah Stewart's out for the year. And they just don't and Hamidou Diallo's out for the season, I think, right? Didn't we see that? No, he's out for a bit, even if it's not the season. I think it's the season, though. So there really isn't anybody left to play power forward on this team. So you might not have a choice. Honestly, I think if he does it again tonight, Big Eugene, then you consider it. Because there's just sort of nobody else coming for those minutes. What I don't know is whether or not this fantasy game will actually translate. This was a particularly nice fantasy game for everybody on the Pistons. And so you don't really want to make your assessments based on that. You can look at some of the recent games for Omoruyi, Oregon product. He played 23, 27, 26, 32 minutes over his last 4 ball games. He has 5 steals and a block over those contests. He's averaging about 4.5 rebounds, 1 3-pointer. Percentages are fine, but unspectacular. I don't know. I don't think I'm racing out. I don't think that there's like this magical end point here to all of this. But, if you had the foresight to roll with it yesterday, it probably worked. Here's the thing. We got to break anything and everything we talk about right now. We got to break down head-to-head side and roto side. They're different right now. Head-to-head, you're looking for maximum streamage. Rest of season value, you just don't even care anymore. Roto, you're looking for per game hyper upside. Neither side, you're really looking at rest of season anymore, which is what makes doing a podcast right now in fantasy very complicated. Because this guy might have rest of season. Who cares? I don't need rest of season. Roto, I need powerhouse per game. So that's why I love Isaiah Jackson, even if I don't even get to use him. And then head-to-head, I want all the games played in the shortest number of time. Detroit was that. They're 3-4 starting in yesterday. 3 games in 4 days for a lot of these guys. So Corey Joseph, I actually did pick him up in a league yesterday. I can't believe it worked as well as it did. He had 5 3-pointers. I would expect a severe dropping back to earth. But, dude's playing starters minutes right now. Killian Hayes on the back-to-back. Made a lot of sense. Roto side? Meh. Killian for a day, maybe. Would I go Joseph for a day? I think if I was targeting some steals and a couple of assists, with like okay efficiency. It's on the cusp. If all of the centers sit for the Pistons, honest to goodness, I don't even any idea what they would do at that point. You'll get some true silly season madness. If only one of the two centers, Duren or Wiseman, sits, then the other one is an obvious play in all formats at that point. Sheesh. Memphis got a big game out of David Roddy. He's been doing that somewhat consistently here lately, kind of playing like a severely undersized center-ish sort of deal. He's hit 7 3-pointers his last 2 ball games, but he's also only played 24 minutes each, or combined in average in those ball games. So I don't think that I can do the David Roddy dance. Sorry. Tillman is a start. Obviously, Tyus Jones is a start. Wasn't as great in this one, but obviously there too. And then on the Dallas side, Jaden Hardy, big ball game. He took 25 shots. Josh Green had a big ball game, but a lot of that was, and you guys know this already, because Luka and Kyrie and Christian Wood were all out for the Mavericks. So they just didn't have any offense. And it's why they shot 39%. Because Memphis wasn't afraid of anybody on that team. And they said, fine, you guys go take a bunch of shots. Jaden and Josh, have at it. And we knew the other shoe was going to drop for Tim Hardaway Jr. I cannot believe my misfortune that the team that basically kept me from going to the playoffs in the one league of mine that ended on Sunday was a team that had Tim Hardaway Jr. And I mean, this is a guy that was barely doing anything for like 2 months. And then Luka and Kyrie both go down. And I mean, I'm so irritated. The head-to-head stuff just continues to drive me completely insane. Anyway, this is what it looks like when Hardaway's not rolling, and now you got to get out of it. You know, you can go with it when he's hot. You got to get out of the way when he's cold, because it is real bad. Woo, is it bad? And I'm not picking up Hardy or Green. I would imagine we see Kyrie on Wednesday, but they also have the Spurs on the road for that ball game. Kind of check out the schedule. That might be a game they rest Kyrie because they're pretty sure they can win it. Luka, I didn't sound like he was all that close. Kyrie was closer. And if that's the case, then, you might be able to squeeze a game out of Hardy and Green. But that's a move you're really considering more so on the Roto side, because you don't want to make a move to those guys and then not get them with this sort of big upside play. Gabe Vincent played better for Miami. Just needed Kyle Lowry behind him to, I guess, push him into playing better basketball. Those two guys are probably going to be in a bit of a timeshare, and whoever's playing better is going to get the bonus minutes. So just stick with Jimmy Butler, Bam, and Tyler Hero, and don't do anything else with the Heat. Miami had a really good schedule for a while there. It now peters out a tad. They have one game over the next 4 days before a weekend back-to-back, and then a 2 and a 3 game week coming up after that. So Miami is a spot where you're only looking for roto plays, and beyond the main dudes, there aren't any right now. Utah. Lauri Markkanen still playing. I like that. Kelly Olynyk still playing. He wasn't very good in this game, but I like it. I like that he's playing. Walker Kessler played through a flu or a cold, or he had something, so you can forgive him the slightly depressed line against Bam Adebayo. Simone Fontecchio. Is that Fontecchio? I really should have looked that up. I think it's Fontecchio. Big ball game. He does this about once every 4 or 5 days. If you can figure out when it's coming, good luck to you. THT, high turnover, low field goal percent game. This is one of the big fears with him, is that he doesn't really have a great fantasy game. But with both Jordan Clarkson and Colin Sexton still out, I think there's probably enough for you to play THT most games. And then Chris Dunn, who only got 21 minutes in this game. He and Taylor Horton Tucker split the point guard minutes basically by themselves. Chris Dunn's been putting up numbers in extremely limited time, so anytime he gets more than that, it's just kind of gravy. Chris Dunn does belong on rosters right now. Utah, terrible schedule for the head-to-head side, so that discussion was mostly for Roto. You can pretty much drop everybody on this team besides Walker Kessler and Lauri Markkanen. Everyone else is a drop. Don't say, but what about? No. THT, drop. Chris Dunn, drop. Colin Sexton, drop. Jordan Clarkson, drop. Lowry, Kelly Olynyk is a drop. Sorry, I love him. I love Kelly, but, top 80, top 90 is not enough in a head-to-head scenario. when they've got 1 game in 6 days the rest of this week. There's almost nobody in the NBA that's truly that good enough beyond that. But, like, how much is it going to help you to have those guys the following week? Some, but other guys in that range are going to get dropped by teams that also are running into bad schedules. So just assume you'll be able to get somebody useful back for next week. You just can't play Jazz with 1 game in 6 days. Unfortunately, you need to hold on to Kessler and Markkanen because they've been so good lately. But overall, you need to be punting on everybody else. Minnesota just came in and ran the Hawks in this ball game. Their defense, their offense, all of it was just vastly superior, and it was this game was basically over early. Fantasy-wise, we're fortunate that the Hawks let Trae Young just kind of keep playing. I don't really know why they did that. And Trae ended up with 41, one of his better games of the year, honestly, in a really bad losing effort. Hawks side, we've talked about this all week long. Since Quinn Snyder came in, he's basically just telling everybody, win your minutes. And so John Collins has been up and down, and Okongwu's been up and down, and Sadiq Bey's been up and down, and Clint Capella's been up and down. And so, unfortunately, at the end of all of that, you probably have to hold on to Capella because he's still a starting center, and it's pretty easy to have big man value in the NBA. Okongwu, he had a really good ball game here, but a lot of that came in garbage time. He actually had 10 and 5 in the first half, but 6 and 9 with some defensive stats after halftime. Made all of his free throws. This is an as good as it gets sort of deal for Okongwu. His minutes have been bouncing around a bunch. I still feel like the Hawks are largely falling into a schedule stream, almost everybody kind of thing. Obviously not Trae or DeJounte Murray, but you could make a pretty reasonable argument that everybody else on that team is play them when the schedule is good. And now Atlanta has 1 game over the next 5 days before their schedule actually gets a bit better on Sunday. Then they have 5 over the following 8. But, again, all those fringy guys, to me, they're all pretty droppable. And then with Minnesota, you got all these really big ball games. No surprises on the Minnesota side. I just love watching Slow-Mo go for a triple-double with 4 defensive stats, a 3-ball, 5 of 6 shooting, and 3 of 3 from the field. He had, at least by Basketball Monsters grading out, he had the best fantasy line of anybody on the night. Slow-Mo, baby. God, I love me some Slow-Mo. It's unhealthy, my love of Kyle Anderson's fantasy game. He's number 77 on the season now. And remember, the first month and a half, he wasn't even really playing because Cat was still out there. Almost hovering between 50 and 60 for the bulk of the year. And people are like, oh, I just streamed him this week. I get it because they had a bad schedule, but this dude's been a rosterable play for 3.5 months. What a crazy injury stream to fall into. Fall into the slow-mo. What the hell else happened yesterday? Boston did something dumb. They lost at Houston. That is called not taking a game seriously. And honestly, this is great for anybody coming next. Because now the next teams coming in are going to be like, dude, the Rockets won. So we better be careful. I guess that's the Lakers tomorrow. Okay, well, that's good, for the team I root for. Then the Pelicans the next day. Then the or not the next day, but a couple days later, twice. So all of these teams get to look at this last game and go, oh, dang, Rockets just beat the Celtics. We better not screw around. On the Rockets side, this is, okay, so Boston, there's no fantasy notes on this game. None. I know Al Horford was slower, but he's been generally pretty damn good lately. Just like we're at the point of the season where we know what we know. Houston side, we talked about Jabari Smith Jr. a ton at the outset here. He technically was the starting center in this ball game, and Alperen Şengün was probable in the afternoon yesterday and then was a late scratch with groin soreness. And then Houston went on and won the ball game. And so I'm sure everybody, I don't want to insert myself in the Alperen Şengün dialogue because it's all kinds of wacky. There's a contingent that wants him to play 40 minutes a ball game and doesn't care about the fact that he is a huge defensive liability because he's a better player for them to run their offense through. There's the opposite side that wants him benched all the time. And it's happening all within the Houston media sphere. I watched them argue on Twitter. One Houston beat reporter basically arguing with another beat reporter, or a beat blogger arguing with a reporter. I mean, it's the whole thing. And so this is just going to fuel the fire because Şengün sat this ball game out, and then the Rockets probably got their best win of the year in that same ball game. But look, Şengün is a good offensive player. The funny thing is, no one can ever do anything with subtlety anymore. Like, the arguments pro Şengün, it's all posts about how he's the next Nikola Jokic. He's not, people. No one's the next Nikola Jokic in the NBA right now. Nikola is all on a planet by himself. The dude is probably the best passer in the entire NBA. No one else. And Şengün's a decent passer for a big man, but nobody's Jokic. So let's not try to set that bar so high, because then you're just going to end up disappointed. Let's just say Şengün's got a decent offensive future. Can we do that? And he probably can't guard me. And I don't even really know how to play basketball. That's not true. I know how to play. I'm just very bad at it. So there's the trade-off there. So in this ball game, they had to rely on other offense, and they got enough of it. Jabari Smith Jr. figuring things out right now was the reason that Houston was able to win this ball game. He was incredibly efficient. He was a break even. And honestly, having Kevin Porter Jr. back has helped Jabari Smith Jr. Just someone to take the pressure off, someone to get him a ball in a place where he can do something with it. Jalen Green continues to be troubling. He's got to get the shooting figured out. And then fantasy-wise, I expect Şengün back. That would force Tari Eason back to the bench, which, frankly, isn't the worst thing in the world, because Eason, alongside all of the big usage guys, Green, KPJ, Jabari Smith, these guys that are all taking a bunch of shots, even KJ Martin took 13, left 7 for Tari Eason in 35 minutes. I'd like to see him get up to 9 or 10 shots per ball game, because the rebounds, the defensive stats, all of that stuff is juicy for Tari. Either way, he's a hold. I got a should I drop question. I'm like, dude, played 35 minutes last night. No, hold Tari Eason, hold KJ Martin, and you can finally happily hold Jabari Smith Jr., and it shouldn't be hard for the first time all season long. And I would expect Alperen Şengün back for the next ball game. I mean, he was expected to play and then ruled out, and it almost seems like they're saving him for the Laker game, because last time he played the Lakers, he went nuts, but that was against Thomas Bryant. Grain of salt, everyone. It's going to be against Anthony Davis this time. That's probably less good. Warriors beat the Suns. The Warriors are also a kind of a funny team to track the dialogue of, because every time they win a decisive home game against a good team, we all go, oh my goodness, they're back, baby. And then they go out on the road and they look awful, and we say that they're terrible again. But look, that's the home road Warriors this year. The Warriors are 29-7 at home, which I think is like the 3rd or 4th best home record in the NBA. Despite the fact that they are 3 games over 500, they have one of the best home records in the entire league. And they have one of the worst road records in the NBA. They have the same road record as the Pistons. 7-26. Crazy. So, home game for the Warriors. Klay Thompson goes bananas. A win over a good opponent. It's worth pointing out, by the way, that Phoenix has depth issues right now, which, again, that's another thing that sometimes kind of gets covered up at home when the role players that you have, who aren't, frankly, all that good. Look, I like Josh Okogie. He's made a nice little turnaround this year, but he's still Josh Okogie. And this is road iteration Josh Okogie, hostile environment, all that good stuff. So you still got plenty decent lines from DeAndre Ayton. You got a good line from Devin Booker. Chris Paul was kind of meh, but, not great, not terrible. And then they just got nothing from anybody else. They had 3 guys on their team that were mildly to decently productive yesterday, and everybody else was terrible. You need more than that to win a road game against a decent team. Now, if you have, say, the best scorer on earth on your team, all that other stuff gets washed away. But they don't for a couple of weeks. Talking, of course, of Kevin Durant. So they went into San Francisco, and the Warriors beat them. Dante DiVincenzo was slower in this one. He's still a hold as long as Andrew Wiggins is dealing with personal stuff. I don't feel like I need to repeat that over and over again, but I do, just because. Kevon Looney's a schedule play, and with the Warriors have a decent schedule here coming up. Jermichael Green has actually kind of played his way into a schedule play, but that's only because Jonathan Kuminga's been out. If he is indeed back, he becomes a schedule play as well. For Phoenix, you probably were already on the schedule stuff with them. They have 3 games in 4 days to start the week. Then you abandon ship on whatever fringy sun you may have thrown onto your fantasy team. For Milwaukee, Brook Lopez and Trey Lyles got ejected basically at the end. Ball game was effectively over. Giannis dribbled in front of Trey Lyles while dribbling out the clock. Lyles didn't like it, so he committed kind of a hard foul at center court. Brook Lopez got in his face. High shoves were thrown. We'll find out if there's a suspension. I don't remember seeing a clear punch. It seemed like sort of upper shoulder shoves, but we'll find out. If those guys get suspended, for Milwaukee, it opens the door for Bobby Portis, who probably is going to have an open door anyway, because Giannis might sit a back-to-back. This is a tough back-to-back travel from Sacramento to Phoenix. Middleton's definitely sitting the back-to-back, so expect a better game out of someone like a Grayson Allen. Pat Connaughton probably gets a little bit better. Grayson Allen, you might consider in Roto. You definitely consider as a head-to-head play because Milwaukee's another team with a good schedule to start the week. Roto's side, if you want to try to squeeze a game out of Joe Ingles and Bobby Portis tonight, those are the ones that I would look at and say, yeah, those make sense. And by the way, Phoenix, they're also kind of on a tough travel back-to-back because they were also in the Bay Area, and they have to fly home for this back-to-back set. But it's a little easier when you got the sort of home juice in you. Otherwise, on the Kings side, Keegan Murray has slid back down into a schedule play zone. He's been losing minutes to Trey Lyles. He lost some to Kessler Edwards in the previous ball game. Malik Monk, he lost his minutes to Kevin Huerter. Or not, I'd say lose them, but he didn't steal them from Huerter. But with these two teams, you're really looking at the individual game decisions. Sacramento has a glorious schedule starting tomorrow. So if you like any of these fringy Kings, I mean, Trey Lyles gets ejected. That kind of screws that one up because he would have been the 5-7 guy I would have looked at. But Malik Monk is a 5-7. If Keegan got dropped for kind of stinking, he would be a streamable guy. Harrison Barnes is probably rostered. Kevin Huerter probably rostered. But you look at a lot of these guys on Sacramento going 5-7 nights starting tomorrow. That's a key spot. And then again with Milwaukee, Portis, if Giannis or Brook Lopez is out for this ball game, is a one-gamer. Ingles, if Middleton, I would say maybe you need someone else out. I would like to see Middleton and Giannis out to go the Ingles route. But there is some stuff on the board that could be roto-friendly on that Milwaukee side. So that is your Monday recap. It's time to segue now into playoff streaming calendars. All my Roto listeners have gone into full tune-out mode. Time for me to make that window a little bit bigger, too. I apologize to the YouTube viewers that I didn't make the box scores larger. It probably was harder for you guys to see. All right, so here's what we're working with here. This is actually a critical day, Tuesday. I know it's weird to say that Tuesday's a kind of a mission-critical day or for streaming decisions, but it is. And the reason I say that is because there were a couple of teams that had a game on Monday that don't play for a while. We talked about the Atlanta Hawks. We talked about the Utah Jazz, who have a particularly atrocious schedule the rest of the week. And those are clubs where you need to get off of anyone who's not a supremely high talent. So, yeah, Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, those guys you can hang out with. Maybe even Clint Capella on Atlanta, because at least they have 2 games the rest of the week. But like with Utah, as we mentioned earlier in the show, one and done for the Jazz. So everybody besides Walker Kessler and Lauri Markkanen, those guys are donezo. But here's the thing. They're not the only situation where you can look at these types of moves. Because there are, I think, 4 or 5 teams that have 4 games the rest of this week starting today. Denver, the Lakers, the Magic, the Spurs, and the Raptors. 5 teams still have 4 games left this week. That's a really nice opportunity to drop someone who only has 1 or 2 games left this week and pivot to someone with 4. However, if one of those teams you're looking at that has specifically 2 games left this week, if that's the club that you're looking to get off of, you have that decision to make that we talked about on yesterday's show. By the way, Donovan Mitchell just got ruled out while we were on air, which is absolutely atrocious. My head-to-head team that's still alive has Donovan Mitchell and Kyrie Irving. Wee! Head-to-head, you idiotic format. Deep breath, Dan. It happened in the middle of a podcast. Pull yourself back together. Okay, so if you're talking about the Jazz, it's an easy decision because you can make a move off of Utah to someone with 4 games left this week. That's a 3-game bump. There is literally nothing you could do to convince me that getting 3 extra games isn't a good idea. Easy call. You need to use a roster move. Or honestly, if you have 2 Jazz, you need to use 2 roster moves. You can't sit on those guys that are not Lauri Markkanen and not Walker Kessler. Can't do it. Their schedule's too terrible. Utah doesn't play until Saturday. Good Lord. But some of these other teams that have like kind of bad schedules this week, and the Knicks have a bad schedule. They're a 2-gamer, but they play tonight. Atlanta, who went yesterday, they still have 2 more games this week. But Charlotte, 2 games this week. They play tonight. This type of stuff is important because now you make a decision. And you guys know I talk about if you're going to make a move in head-to-head early in the week, you need to gain at least 2 games from it. You can get a 2-game bump from, Charlotte is a good example. Let's say you have Nick Richards on your team or Dennis Smith Jr. or something like that. And you're thinking, okay, do I move on from these guys? Well, now you're actually comparing the game tonight for Charlotte or New York is the other option against the player you're picking up. Because even if you waited until after tonight, you would still be gaining 2 games from that roster move this week. And you actually have more options of teams to pick from if you wait through the Charlotte or New York game tonight. I saw some folks on Twitter saying, like, you just got to get off of Charlotte. You got to get off of New York. I agree with the caveat that you don't have to do it until tomorrow. Tomorrow you got to do it because those teams have 1 game left over the 5 remaining days this week. And you can turn that into 3 games over the remaining 5 days left this week. So you still get a 2-game bump. But the beauty is you actually get to compare tonight the player you'd be dropping against the player you'd be picking up because they'd both be playing on the same night. So let's say, hypothetically, you're looking at all the teams that have 4 games left the rest of this week, which I think we said was 5 of them. And I don't know who's floating around out there. Gary Trent's been dropped in a lot of places because he's been bad. Let's say you're comparing a pickup of Gary Trent against playing Dennis Smith Jr. today, or going Dennis Smith Jr. today, and then picking between Trent or actually more teams that have 3 games the rest of the week starting tomorrow. Because instead of looking for 4 and 6, you're only looking for 3 and 5. That's actually easier to find. That includes Boston, Chicago, Denver, the Warriors, the Rockets, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Grizzlies, the Heat, the Wolves. How many am I at? I'm at 10 right now. The Magic, the Sixers, the Kings, the Spurs, the Raptors. Half of the NBA has 3 games over the final 5 days of this week. So that's why I advocate for actually hanging on to a Charlotte Hornet or a New York Knickerbocker tonight and give yourself way more streaming opportunities or choices, really, tomorrow. Plus, if you want to go this route and you went with a team tomorrow that has 3 games in 4 nights, you could actually move back off of that player on Sunday. Whereas if you're going for a team that has 4 games in 6 days starting today, I believe that every single one of those teams finishes out their 4 and 6. Yeah, they have to on Sunday. The Lakers at least have a back-to-back, so that gives you an opportunity to maybe abandon ship a little earlier, as do the Spurs. But there's just a lot of options if you let your Hornet or your Knick play their game today. However, as I said already, if you're comparing player versus player and the pickup is better than the drop, That's fine. Either way, though, remember, today or tomorrow, you can still add 2 games to your weekly ledger, and that has to be the goal. And if you can do that with 4 weekly moves and add 10 games to your long streaming ledger, or sorry, 8 games, that's a colossal jump in what you're able to do. Colossal jump. Crazy. Absolutely crazy how much you can get, especially this week with some of the really weird schedules out there. So again, you don't want to use too many moves early in the week, but I would strongly advocate you have to get off of any Utah Jazz that are not a top 30 or 40 play, and you can look at getting off of Atlanta Hawks as well. And then if you can, hang on to your Hornets or Knicks through at least one more day, and then make your pivot on that one. And that is your Tuesday show, everybody. Thank you to all of my wonderful recorded listeners who I managed to go an entire program with without doing any promo of any kind, which means you're getting one now, and it's about the baseball draft guide. You guys know that's going to be the promo every day right now. I need you guys to check that out. It's at sportsethos.com. You click on the premium tab and you choose Get Premium. But here's the thing. You can get a fantasy pass, which has both baseball and basketball in it right now. And the fantasy pass gets you the premium projections. It gets you the premium tools like the streaming guide that you guys have seen on your screen here. You guys can actually get access to an Excel version of that to take home yourself. It gets you the baseball draft guide. It gets you baseball and basketball in-season content. And all of that is just $5.99 for a month. There is no lock in place. You can get it for 1 month and then you can cancel. If you love it, you can roll it through the baseball season. If you get a fantasy pass now also, and you hold it through the baseball season, then it loops back around and you get the basketball stuff. And you don't get locked into the 6-month lock at that point. So there's a ton of reasons, if you already have a fantasy pass, to just keep it on. Or if you're thinking about getting one, getting it now. On top of all of that, folks that have a fantasy pass through the basketball offseason get the Brewski 150 5 days before anyone else in a fantasy pass for the late buyers. So that's another reason to get it now. Sportsethos.com. Click on the premium tab. Choose Get Premium. Recorded listeners, much love. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Oh, I'm Dan Vespris. You guys knew that, though. Goodbye for real. All right, Q&A time, everybody. I think I already I said an auto tweet about it that went a little bit too early, but it is now officially Q&A time. So take a second, get your questions in the chat. And let's see. I got to figure out where the hell we left off here. Scrolling up the board. John, you're where we left off. I want to try to do this in the next 10 to 15. Run a little bit early today. By the way, I'm going to try to go a little earlier if I can. Only doing one kid drop-off now, so we might be able to get started before 9 o'clock Pacific time. Although I feel like people really started to tune in closer to 10 Pacific a lot of days, so I hope I didn't jump the gun. 3 games of Vassell this week, or stream that spot for maximum games. I think 3 of Vassell is actually probably enough. Is Gary Trent Jr. a drop? In Roto, probably. In head-to-head, no. He has 4 games the rest of this week. Enjoy them. Or some of them. Troy Brown or Lamar Stevens, a better option for 3 in 4 days. Points League 16-teamer. I will go Troy Brown Jr. He's been pretty consistent for the Lakers lately. 9-cat, Roto games capped. Is Time Lord still worth a pickup? Should I drop Clarkson? Yes. Or should I drop Mark Williams? I like Time Lord, Mark Will, Jordan Clarkson. Jordan Clarkson has not been really a Roto play this year. So pretty easy call for me on that one, especially with him out. Boing. If Franz Wagner misses tonight's game, should he be dropped for Jalen Suggs? Franz been outside the top 100 for the last month. I'm not sure if he's worth holding through an injury. It's a great question, Josh. Yes, I think I probably would make that swap. Suggs has been kind of rolling lately. More than anything, Suggs has been going buck wild on defense. So if I can squeeze out some juicy defensive stats over 1 or 2 ball games, that to me is probably enough on its own. It's a head-to-head decision, by the way. A lot of recognizable names here, although I think there was a name up above that I hadn't seen before. So hopefully there are new viewers hanging out. I love it when there's a new. If you're new and you post a question, please let me know. I think I can recognize the new names, but I don't get them all right all the time. Hey, like and subscribe, people. Please take a second to do that. If you'd like what we're doing over here with all these YouTube live chats and game recaps and streaming guides, I try to jam a lot of stuff into one damn show these days. So if you like what you got going on over here, please do subscribe. I'm planning on trying to do this through the off season, believe it or not. I don't know if anybody's going to watch, but whatevs. They won't all be at first thing in the morning in the off season. I do them whenever the hell I want because, no games to worry about. And then we're going to have way more draft zone content next year. NBA, around the NBA. So like starting in September, we'll probably really ramp up our stuff on YouTube as well. Mock drafts, things of that nature. It's going to be a lot of good stuff going on over here. I am going to be going crazy on YouTube next year. So you got to subscribe now. Mike Shepard, super close matchup. Would you drop Nick Richards to stream 3 to 4 games rest of week for his slot, or drop Richards after his game Friday and stream a weekend back-to-back? Still 4 games for the slot. I would let Nick Richards play today, and then I would drop him tomorrow. Because there aren't that many. I mean, I guess there's more than I expected. Denver's weekend back-to-back. Denver, Clippers, Heat, Magic, Raptors all have a Saturday, Sunday back-to-back. So you do have some choices there. I just like the idea. The thing is, like, if you wait until Friday and Mark Williams is back and Richards goes back to playing 18 to 20 minutes, then you're going to feel like a little bit of a dummy. So that's why I think I would let him play tonight, where we know he's going to have a big ball game. And then you have 15 teams to choose from to get 3 games versus Richards 1 the rest of the week. It just gives you so many choices of possible pickups where then you're not even looking at fringe guys at that point. One of those 15 teams is going to have a player where you're like, oh, I feel pretty comfortable with this guy. Wright will come off waivers tomorrow. First name, DeLon. Should I drop Dante DiVincenzo for DeLon Wright? Weighing between picking Wright up before someone claims him versus losing the 2 extra days of games. Well, DiVincenzo has 3 games left this week. DeLon Wright has 2 games left after tonight. So, no. I think my answer there is no on head-to-head. I'm not using moves unless I'm gaining games played. And in this particular instance, you wouldn't be. So, no. Looking for a Bulls streamer in a points league. 3 games in 4 days coming up, starting Wednesday. In what order would you rank these 3? Caruso, Patrick Williams, Patrick Beverly. I'm going to go Beverly over Caruso over Williams because I want the starters. And Beverly's starting. Caruso, I think it started a couple games recently. Pat Will had gotten shifted. So, no, Easton's not a drop. You're the second or third person that's asked me that. Played 35 minutes yesterday. Not a drop. Dropping Olynyk. Recommendations for best stream guy who has 3 to 4 games before Sunday. Bates, Jop, Suggs, any others you can think of. Suggs is probably my favorite. Charles Bassey on the Spurs is interesting because he probably plays in the back-to-backs. Bates, Jop probably plays in the back-to-backs. Devontae Graham might play in the back-to-backs for San Antonio. I doubt Cole Anthony's around on Orlando. I mean, even in like 15 to 20 minutes a game, Wagner in 4 games would probably be okay in a 14-teamer. Lakers, guys like Schroeder, Austin Reeves are interesting. Troy Brown would probably not make it for a 14-teamer, but even he's sort of teetering on it. I don't think there's anybody really on Denver. Winning 8-1 with steals is the only cat I think I'll most likely lose, so all-around players needed. Okay, so there you go. Look, all-around. Reeves is kind of an all-around guy. Suggs, he might hurt you in percentages if you're worried about that. Joey, are you new? No, I think I've seen you before. There's got to be a new one or two. Every day I think we get 1 or 2 new folks that come to hang out, so love ya. Like and subscribe, new folks. Chances of Zach Collins plays the back-to-back. 30%. I don't think he does, but who knows with the Spurs. Ochai Agbaji or Josh Richardson for the next 3 weeks. I have not looked that far ahead. Abaji's got a 2-game week this week, so you're talking about the last 3. He's got 12 games over that stretch, and the Pelly Pels have 11. but J. Rich is better. So I'll go J. Rich with 11 versus Sabaji with 12. It's close enough. If it was like a 2-game advantage, I might go the other way, but 1 game is too tight. If Kyrie or Luka don't play the next game or one comes back, who would you prioritize as a pickup, Jaden Hardy or Josh Green? If they're both out, I prefer Josh Green over Jaden Hardy. In fact, that's the case for me regardless. If either one of them is back, I don't think I want either of those guys. I think the only reason I'm looking at them is because all of the usage is up for grabs. But if either Kyrie or Luka comes back and they take the lion's share of the shots, and then who knows with Tim Hardaway, because he's going to shoot 15 times whether they're going in or not. These two guys needed all of those shots to get to their value. So I need both guys out to trust those dudes. Hey, Dan, should I pick up Ingram if he plays? I mean, hell yes. If Brandon Ingram is playing, you definitely pick him up because that's a top 60 fantasy guy. And a 3-game week is very much fine for a top 60 play. On top of the fact that they don't have back-to-backs until the 27th and 28th. So if you're worried about him sitting out half of something, not that their schedule's not particularly good, but a 3-gamer out of Ingram is more than enough. Keep throwing questions in, folks. We're rolling. Do you think Dame will come back this season because it looks like Blazers might be tanking? There's sort of no reason for them to tank. Also, since the Knicks are set for the playoffs, do you think they will risk Brunson and play him? I think Brunson will play as soon as he's ready. You know, I don't think that they're forcing him to sit if he's not quite there. He tried to come back, remember, and he re-aggravated it. So, you know, assume that they were going to give him at least a week after the re-aggravation. That'll be later this week, and then they'll kind of reassess. So I think you'll see Brunson by next week. And frankly, I think you'll see Dame by later this week. But, you know, who knows? He's going to try because the Blazers are kind of last gasp right now. So yes, Dame will be back this season. Will it be later this week or next week? I don't know, but I think he'll be back. And Jalen Brunson will also be back. And I feel much more confident in saying Brunson will be back by some point next week or sooner. Keeper League. I have Kessler as a 7th round. That's nice, but need to drop for streaming rest of week. Where do you see him going in drafts next year? Way before the 7th round. Dude's been top 40 for 3 months, I think. Let me double check myself on that. Walker Kessler. Yeah, number 35 over the last 40 ball games. No reason to think he comes off of that either. Massive blocks, big field goal percent, and nobody challenging him for his minutes in Utah. So I would not drop him, Brian. I know you want to win in a keeper league, but getting that dude in what is effectively like pick 80 for a guy that you know is basically locked into top 50 value, you better win. If you make that move and you don't win your league, I'm going to be real mad at you. Kenneth, follower since week 2. Hey, that's cool. Glad to have someone new for this season. Got eliminated in the first round due to 6 players not playing 2. Yeah, that's what I had. I hate that. Looking forward to next season already with you tackling the draft. Thank you for the pieces of advice. Cheers. Yeah, you are very welcome, man. Thanks for coming along for the ride. Sorry you got caught up in the head-to-head bull, you know what. Try some Roto. Try a free Roto league next year alongside the head-to-head league that you care about. Just do a free one. Get your bearings. I'll walk you through all of it during draft season as well. Both sides. I think you'll love it because if you work the hardest, you have the best draft, and you have the best pickups, you're going to win. Doesn't matter if 6 of your guys get hurt for 1 week in March. They come back the next week. Keep putting numbers in your bucket. Hey, Dan, league format question for next year. Okay, that's a good one. You think it's good, neutral, or bad idea to go positionless and have flex spots for all? I'm fine with it. Most of the leagues I run, we go 3 guard, 3 forward, 2 center, 2 utility. No small forward, no power forward, no shooting guard, no point guard, whatever. I know a lot of folks hate the 2 center format. I find it to be actually not that hard these days. At least Yahoo gives a lot of power forwards center eligibility. So that made it, I thought, a lot easier. It used to be, in my estimation, a lot tougher to conjure up 2 centers. But there's a bunch right now. And there are, I think there's like more than 25, 26, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 29 centers ranked inside the top 100 in fantasy right now. So, you know, when you consider positional eligibility, That's almost right on the average. Because some of these guys are power forward eligible also. But, like, this is anybody with center eligibility, and there's basically 30 of them in the top 100. Anybody with forward eligibility, it's more like 50. Anybody with guard eligibility, it's also around 50, I think. Yeah, like 53, 52. So makes sense. 30, 50, and 50. You go 3, 3, and 2. It works. If you want to go all flex, that's fine. I'm okay with that. All right, let me pick up the pace here a little bit. What do you think of picking up Corey Joseph and dropping Kelly Olynyk? No. Kojo only has 3 games the rest of the week. The time to get him would have been yesterday. If you're looking at a pickup from an Olynyk drop, you're going for someone who has 4 games today through Sunday. I will not move off of that position. 4 games today through Sunday, Brian. 12-team points league. Locked up the first seed playoff start after this week. Ooh, late playoffs. I've got to buy. Katie and Lowry in my IR. I hold on to Lowry or let him loose. Who to drop? DeLon, Richards, or Brogdon? I think you can drop Kyle Lowry. I don't think he's going to be very good the rest of the way. I have no problem with dumping Lowry. Oh my God, where did all these questions come from? Holy moly. I got to go real fast now. Hey, new folks watching, like and subscribe. I see you. I see names I don't recognize. Bates Drop or Bassey in a points league? Bates Drop minutes are better, but Bassey has the higher upside. I'll go Bates Drop for the more minutes. Points league, you go minutes almost every time if you can. Dan, thank you for another great season. Was up by 20 games and dominating. Unfortunately, last week's schedule was just too light. Yeah, and then guys sat. Your rants about Roto are ringing in my ear, and I will be pressing my league to make the jump. Even if your league doesn't make the jump, Cresto, just hop in a Yahoo public prize Roto league for like $20. They've got really cheap ones. You can try it out. I think you're gonna love it. You had the perfect example of the type of season that head-to-head makes stupid, where you're just crushing everyone, and then in 1 week, all of your best players are like, you know what, I don't really feel like playing for the next 4 days. Meh. You got both Lowry and Kessler. Yeah, you might just have to wear this one, man. Stream some other spots that are less awesome. You know, these top 40, top 20 guys. Gotta hold them, even in a 2-game week. Top 50 or better plays in weekly leagues in a 2-gamer. I know most of you don't play weekly leagues. The biggest, most expensive leagues in basketball are weekly leagues. The rule is top 50 or better, start them in a 2-gamer. Because the guys you find on the wire for 4 usually don't quite catch them. Hey, Dan, made 2 of 5 moves for the week. I added Vanderbilt today, slow-mo yesterday. Need to drop Olynyk now. Oh, boy, you're using him up early. You got to make the move. Kelly's got to go. Make the move. Probably someone that has a back-to-back, since it sounds like you might have to punt on somebody early. But make the move. Do it, much as it hurts. Brad and Brittany Clark. Combo. Horford, Okongwu, or Gafford. Rest of season. Hey, a rare rest of season question. It's Big Al. Do you know which team has the best schedule next week? There are a lot of teams that have a 4-gamer. The Kings start with a back-to-back, but then they've got a couple days off. But if you're looking at next week, I suppose you're looking for teams that would play 3 of the first 4 days just to kind of like get things rolling out of the chute. And the only team, 2 of them actually, the only team that does that is the Knicks, believe it or not. They have the best schedule in the NBA to start next week. Then they don't play Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So you'd have to sort of run away, as my dad used to say. Plenty of teams go 4 in the first 6, though, or at least a handful. Indiana, 4 in the first 6. Philly, Sacramento, Utah have 4 the first 6 days next week. Hopefully that gets you started there. I have Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, and KJ Martin all available on the wire. Can you rank who you like the best to worst? Right now, I like Suggs because I think Gary Harris sits at least one half of the back-to-back, and Franz Wagner might miss a game on the back-to-back, and Orlando's got 4 games the last 6 days this week. Then Cole Anthony, because 4 games. KJ Martin only has 3 games the rest of this week, so that puts him 1 rung lower. If you were talking Roto, it's almost flipped. KJ's above the other 2, but head-to-head, Suggs and Cole are kind of together, and then Martin because he's got a game less. I have a bye this week for playoffs, week 22 and 23 games. Okay. So now it's a little different. So it's not quite rest of season on that question from before. Horford with 6 games, Okongwu with 8, Gafford with 8, Olynyk with 8. Olynyk with 8 is my favorite for those 2 weeks, although there is a fear of his possible shutdown. Do the Celtics have any back-to-backs in that mix? That's important to know. They do. So I would expect Horford actually is a 2-gamer that second week you're talking about. As much as I love Big Al, 5 games isn't going to be enough. So it's Olynyk, and you hope he plays in most of them. Gafford, because he probably will play in them. Okongwu, Horford's at the bottom because he just isn't playing enough games. Dan, do you think Robert Williams comes back this week, or should I pick up DeLon Wright? I don't think he comes back this week. We got a report yesterday that he didn't really have a strict timetable. They're hoping to get him back at some point on that road trip, but that could be still another week. And they're going to be kind of light with him, too. So I think I'd rather have DeLon Wright if that's your dilemma. Think AD sits the back-to-back? Nope. I don't think the Lakers have any chance to mess around. I think he's playing. Best way to utilize a playoff bye week? Great question, Nathaniel. I'm going to try to do this in a 3-minute response because questions have really poured in today. Thank you, everybody, for so many questions. I hope the new ones among you are subscribing to the page and liking the stream. Wait until Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and then look for teams that go heavy to start the following week. We just talked about the Knicks as a really interesting team to start next week, especially interesting because teams are going to drop Knicks in the next day or two because their schedule is so bad this week. So wait for those guys to clear waivers. Pick up your Quentin Grimeses or your if someone drops Josh Hart because he in a 2-game week he shouldn't be good enough. Or if someone drops Mitchell Robinson, Randall and Brunson are going to stay on rosters, but a lot of other Knicks are going to hit the wire this week, and they are a great Monday through Thursday next week. You can get a real quick start on your opponent. Kings, if you wanted to add them, you'd be holding for 6 days next week. Like we talked about, the Jazz are also a really fun one because they go 4 in the first 6 next week, and everybody's going to be dropping their Jazz for their horrible schedule this week. It's a really huge advantage to have that you can pick up these players from teams that have bad schedules this week, that have great schedules next week, and just load up with, top 90 guys that are getting thrown to the wire where you can get 4 games out of them. And then you could drop them on Sunday next week if you wanted. Tony Pillow. I don't recognize you. You might be new. Are you new, Tony? Welcome if you're new. Like and subscribe. Franz Wagner just came available in my league. Is he an ad right now in a fairly competitive matchup, or do we think his ankle injury is too much of a risk? We'll have more by later tonight on that one. So, it's 10 o'clock this morning here on the Pacific Coast. I wouldn't do anything related to a Franz pickup right now. What time is the Magic's game tonight is the question. Let's see. Is Franz, they play at San Antonio at 5 o'clock. There's a lot of games left to start at that point. I assume we'll get a report on him by probably around 3:30 or 4, I would think. So if he gets ruled out, you sort of get your answer pretty easily there where you're not picking him up. If he gets ruled in, then yes. So to me, it has everything to do with whether or not he plays tonight or not. David Roddy or Patrick Williams rest of the week? I trust Patrick more. I might regret that, but I trust Patrick. Doug Otto, what do you think is the best acquisition limit setting for 2-week playoff matchups? My league's limit is 10, and it's hard to stream with only 1 IL spot. 10 is a lot for a 2-week matchup. Most leagues go 4 a week. I would say either 8 or 10 would be my call there. So you're in a pretty good spot. You could stream a bunch of slots with 10 roster moves. Long stream, Doug. Hope you've been with us this whole way through. When you pick up a streamer, it's not just for 1 or 2 days. It's for 3 or 4 days or 6. Is Nurk falling off? Will he even be top 100 next year? No, I don't think he will. Is he top 100 this year? 146? That's the last 3 months. He hasn't played that much the last 3 months. What is he on the whole season? 120. He's not even top 100 this year. First time I've listened to you not on 1.75 speed on Spotify. It's nuts. Yeah, welcome to the actual sound of my deep, resonant voice. Not talking like this. I'm talking about And my ugly mug. You got a double bonus. Oh, thanks, Brian. Tommy. Time Lord, worth holding on to. Points league, my playoffs go 2 weeks apiece. Weeks 21, 22, and then 23, 24. I think they'll rest him enough to drop. Yeah, I mean, he isn't playing now. If he comes back at any point this week, you're probably getting, I would think, 1 game max. Probably 3 max next week, 2 the week after that. That, to me, is not enough. LeBron James back on the court taking free throws after shoot-around in New Orleans, shared by Dave McMenamin. Yeah, but, he's not. Free throws is very different than jumping and cutting. I would expect LeBron to still miss at least another week and a half. Another 10 days at the very least. Much as I would love to see him out there. You guys know I love the Lakers. Very pragmatic. You guys have listened to me a long time. Do I ever tell you to pick a Laker that I don't think is legitimately worth grabbing? I don't. And that's it. We're done. We're cutting it off. There's my Twitter handle, @DanBasbris, sportsethos.com. Please do check out the draft guide. But honestly, just get a fantasy pass for $5.99. Try it out. It's so little. I mean, if you're about to win a few $100 in your league, you can spend $6 back on Sports Ethos as a thank you. And hell, maybe you then set yourself up to win some money in a baseball league. If you want to join one, I think we may even consider opening up another one if enough of you are interested. But for today, that is all. Take it to Twitter. Dan Besbris, DanBesbris. Later for now.